Today on Sports Central, we'll be over our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Nebraska Cornhuskers, a team that certainly was a disappointment team in 2020 as this team went 3-5 overall. This is a team with a ton of upside going into the 2021 season, and how much Nebraska can improve going into next season is what we're going over here today. We're going to be going over a few players that Nebraska will be losing, who they're going to be returning, and also look at their schedule for the first time this offseason, starting out with the previous 6 games for Nebraska. And if you look at this team down the stretch, this team beat Penn State on November 14th, 30-23. And even though Penn State was not a very good team last season, that was a pretty good win there at home. Nebraska all around looked really good in that game. They lost to Illinois, though, 23-41. That was a terrible loss for Nebraska. I mean, Illinois is not a team they want to get blown out to. And Illinois Illinois played well in that game, but Nebraska certainly, you can't be losing to Illinois by 18 if you're wanting to be a good team. They lost to Iowa 20-26, which really, that wasn't a terrible loss there. Iowa actually played really well at that point in the season, and they kept it within a 6-point game, so not a terrible loss on that one. But they did beat Purdue the next week. 37-27 was the final score there, so that was a good win for Nebraska towards the end of the season. And then they lost to Minnesota 17-24 in a close one, but they beat Rutgers to finish out the season 20-21. And honestly, I'll just keep saying how important that Rutgers game was there. If Nebraska lost that game to finish out the season, that could have been a bad situation for Nebraska. They would have had no momentum at all going into the offseason. So that was a crucial win for Nebraska to get the win in Piscataway against Rutgers. Once again, their final score was 28-21. So Nebraska did win 2 of their last 3, but this is certainly a team that was so inconsistent last season. And me being a Husker fan, obviously by the hat and everything, I'm a Nebraska fan. And this team, over the course of the season, they were just so inconsistent. And really, if you're going to be a good team, if you're going to be able to compete in the Big Ten West and any conference in general, you got to be more consistent. Like one week they would beat Penn State 30-23. This is actually a perfect example because the next week they got blown out to Illinois 23-41. This team was extremely inconsistent, and even though they kept it close with Iowa, still got to win those games. It was a 20-26 score. It was super close. That could have been a huge win, huge momentum shifter there. It also was a touchdown loss against Minnesota. So really, if you look at this Nebraska team over the course of 3 years, the records don't look good, certainly. I think they were 4-8 a couple seasons ago, and then they were 5-7 last year, 3-5 this year. The records don't look good, but this team is improving. It sounds crazy, but I definitely think it is. If you look at this team from 2018 to now, Nebraska is a much better team in my opinion. They're keeping games a lot closer. If you accept that Illinois game on that previous 6 games graphic there, you got some close games in there. Those 2 losses there with Iowa and Minnesota are both really close. So for Nebraska, if you look at this team back in 2018, for example, this team wasn't even keeping games close. Their losses would be 30-40 every single week. So Nebraska certainly has improved, I think, over the last couple of years. It just has not really shown by the record, but this team, I think, going into next season, if they can pull out some wins in the end, if they can be confident enough to get wins out of those close games, this team could be onto a bowl game for sure, maybe even past that 7-8 wins, who knows. But Nebraska does have upside going into next season, and that is an unbiased opinion. Looking at your roster preview for next season, they've returned their starting quarterback, Adrian Martinez, and there was a quarterback battle in Lincoln last season with Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey. We saw both quarterbacks play quite a bit. Adrian Martinez was the leader in yards. He had over 1,000 yards of passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Also led the team in rushing yards with 520 yards and 7 touchdowns. You look at Luke McCaffrey here. Luke McCaffrey is actually transferring away, so he will not be in Nebraska next season. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in that quarterback situation. But Luke McCaffrey last year, right around 500 yards of passing, 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions, and he also had 364 rushing yards. So both quarterbacks put up lots of rushing. But overall, Adrian Martinez, I'd say, had the better season. A lot of Husker fans, trust me, I'm a part of Husker Nation, so I would know. Everyone's super split on whether or not Adrian Martinez or Luke McCaffrey should have been started. Personally, for me, I think Adrian Martinez is the man for the job. And I understand, he doesn't make decisions very well, and that's definitely something he needs to improve on going into next season. But just looking at his stats, the completion rates between these 2 quarterbacks, Adrian Martinez had 72% completion rate, and Luke McCaffrey had a 63% completion rate. So Adrian Martinez also threw the twice amount of passes that Luke McCaffrey did. He performed a ton better across the board in pretty much every area statistically. So Adrian Martinez, I do think, is the man for the job. And next season, honestly, I would feel safer having Adrian Martinez as a starting quarterback than Luke McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey's got a ton of potential, and he's still super young. I understand that, but Adrian Martinez did play better this season. I really do think. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and Luke McCaffrey only threw 1 touchdown and 6 interceptions. So I think Adrian Martinez is the man for the job there. Lose the top running back, Dietrich Mills. He's going to be out of this team next season, put up nearly 500 yards. That will be a tough loss going into next year. The rushing core has got a ton of question marks going into next season. Really, I mean, this team only had one main running back, being Dietrich Mills, and then they had 2 rushing quarterbacks. Wan'Dale Robinson also rushed a decent amount, so this team is losing quite a bit there in the rushing core with Dietrich Mills. Top wide receiver, speaking of which, Wan'Dale Robinson is transferring to Kentucky, so he will not be with the team next season. If you look at him last year, 700 yards of total offense, 2 touchdowns. That is going to be a brutal loss for the Huskers. They return their tight end, second in receiving, Austin Allen. That's going to be a big return there as he put up 236 yards and a touchdown. And then, of course, they return their second wide receiver, Xavier Betts. He's got a ton of potential. I mean, if he can stick around with Nebraska, I think he could easily be a top receiver in the Big Ten by the time he's a senior or even a junior. I mean, he's already got 131 yards last season, 1 touchdown, which isn't a lot of yards. I do understand that, but I mean, he's got some big potential going into next season. I really do believe. Lose 2 offensive linemen, 1 linebacker, 1 in the secondary. So there's a lot of transferring going on within this team right now. I think Nebraska's got the second to most or the most transfers in the Big Ten so far this offseason. So that is concerning going into next year, but I certainly think this team, it is very good that they're returning a lot of those key playmakers in the secondary. There are several players in that secondary that could easily go to the NFL draft, possibly be drafted in the 5th through 7th rounds possibly, but they're going to be staying with Nebraska for their last year, so that is very good news for the secondary in this situation, but they do still lose 1. You got to keep that in mind, but otherwise, this defense looks pretty good, losing 2 starters. So this defense does look pretty good going to next season. This offense definitely has got some question marks next year, though. Big thing is for Nebraska, this team isn't usually very good on defense. It's usually the offensive side that's good for Nebraska, but the defense, I'd say the defense was better last season. So this defensive side on Nebraska, I mean, it's kind of crazy to say this because Nebraska hasn't been very good on defense in a while, but this defense should be a very big impact part of this team. I definitely think if the defense plays well, this team could easily get a couple of wins off of them. So, big question though, how crucial is the 2021 season for Scott Frost? That is a very important question, mainly because, I mean, this is Scott Frost's 4th year coming up. I think Scott Frost personally is the man for the job. I'm kind of on the part where I think Scott Frost needs to stay with Nebraska in the long term. If by season 6, 7, or 8, he's not doing very well, still is on to losing seasons, hasn't made it to a bowl game, I think maybe in that situation, then we can start talking about maybe moving on to a new head coach. But I think Scott Frost, we need to keep him at least for another 3 years and see where we're at from there. I just think, I mean, he's from Nebraska. Nebraska is his alma mater. I think he's the man to do the job if you're asking me. Chance of a bowl appearance in 2021. Nebraska hasn't made it to a bowl game in quite a while now. This team I definitely think has got a good chance this year, though, with the returning production on the defense. Adrian Martinez, if somehow he can have a great season, if Adrian Martinez plays well, this team will play well. So I think if this offensive side can get it together, I mean, this team could easily be, I think, 3rd place maybe in the Big Ten West. I don't really see this team being a contender for the Big Ten Championship, but I do see Nebraska possibly being a contender for a bowl game for sure. But in the Big Ten West, I'm not sure quite yet, but I definitely think this team has got potential. Looking at your schedule for the season, this is actually just adjusted yesterday. Illinois, it still looks like that game is in Ireland. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure, like if you're asking me, I'm definitely thinking that game's going to move to Champaign, but it's still on the road for Ireland right now. That's going to be the week 0 game. Buffalo, then you got on the 11th, Oklahoma on the road on the 18th. That's in Norman. That's going to be a tough game there. Oklahoma's looking like a college football playoff contender for sure. Michigan State on the road in East Lansing. Then we got Northwestern. We got Michigan. And then the second half of the schedule, it's Minnesota, Purdue, Ohio State, Southeastern Louisiana. Then it's Wisconsin on the road in Madison. And then Iowa at home on the 26th to finish out the season. So I'm really happy, though, as a Husker fan, to have the Iowa game pushed back to Black Friday. It made no sense when Sean Eichhorst made the decision to move the Minnesota game of all games to the final game of the season. I definitely think Iowa is definitely the rival for Nebraska. Definitely got to keep that game as the last one of the season. But that being said, looking at the first half of your schedule, we got Illinois, of course, on the 28th of August. I'm going to say that's a close game for now, mainly because Nebraska had troubles with Illinois last season. I'm going to say it's a close game. I'm probably favoring Nebraska right now, especially considering Illinois' head coaching situation, but I'm going to say it's close for now. Buffalo, that's going to be an easy win. Oklahoma on the road, I got to say that's a loss. Oklahoma, I mean, as much as I want that game to be close, Oklahoma is too good of a team right now. They're playing outstanding. And next season with Spencer Rattler, that team is going to be possibly on their way to the college ball playoff. That's going to be a tough game. Michigan State's going to be close. Northwestern's going to be close. Michigan's also going to be close. I'd probably favor Nebraska in the Michigan State game, mainly because Michigan State isn't very good right now. But then again, it is on the road, so I mean, I can't really say much else other than that. Northwestern Michigan will definitely be close right now. But that's the first half of the schedule. Looking at the second half now, Minnesota, that's going to be a close one up there in the Twin Cities. Who knows there? I mean, Minnesota's looking like a team, if they can play. They're kind of the same situation as Nebraska. I definitely think Minnesota's got huge potential. It's just a matter of whether or not Stanley Mort or that offense in general can play better, which, I mean, Minnesota's got potential once again. They've got huge potential. I could see that team possibly going on to be a top 2 team in the Big Ten West this upcoming season, so that will be a tough one there. Then it's Purdue at home on the 30th. I think that's going to be a win. Purdue, of course. I mean, if you look at this Purdue team, they're definitely not looking like a very good team next season, so that's going to be a win. Ohio State game on the 6th of November. Of course, that's always a huge blowout for Ohio State. We haven't seen Nebraska keep up with Ohio State in a decent amount of time, but I definitely think that's going to be a close game for now. I think I'd probably favor Ohio State right now, but I could see that game possibly being close in the early parts for sure. Southeastern Louisiana, that's going to be a win. Wisconsin on the road is going to be a close one. Same thing with Iowa. I can see both those games between Wisconsin and Iowa being pretty close. I mean, if you look at this team down the stretch, I mean, this team does stay at home all the way, it looks like, from October 30th all the way until November 13th. So they do have 3 straight home games there. They got their bye week, it looks like, on the 23rd. So that's 4 straight weeks at home in the later parts of the season. So that's definitely going to be something that Nebraska can take advantage of in the second half of the season. Definitely watch out for that there. But the record projection, 5-7 to 6-6 for this season. I think this team is going to be barely on the edge of a bowl game. I mean, I could see this team going 7-5. I mean, I definitely could have put that in the record projection there. But I'm going to stick with 5-7 to 6-6 for now. I think this team is definitely capable of making it to a bowl game, but I'm not going to say too much right now about this team. I certainly think this team could easily make it to a bowl game and easily miss one. So I'm going to keep it as a 5-7 to a 6-6 record projection. But that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Nebraska, record projections, all of that. Let me know down in the comments below. I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys all later.